Hey guys, Trevin here, Gearshift Garage, and we're back in vintage technologies with Hawke, and he just finished this bike. Tell us about it.
This bike I built for a client who had a really rad 76 Chevy short box van with a cool 18 paint job I really couldn't live without. And he was pretty insistent that he was not going to get rid of the van until some intense negotiations. He talked me into building him a chopper and to swap for the van. So I figured, well, I have more chopper projects than I have cool vans. So that kind of was the birth of this. And he just wanted a long front end and foot clutch and some basics, hardtail, sissy bar, upswept fishtail exhaust, some of the contemporary staple chopper goodies. So went through and the original donor bike was a alternator shovelhead, which were built from 1980 to 1984. This one is comprised of mostly aftermarket components. 4-speed transmission, and it was in an original swing arm frame. Swing arm meaning that it actually has rear suspension. So to accommodate the long front end, we had to stretch the front of the frame up. And then I fabricated the rear hardtail section, which eliminates the rear suspension altogether. And then kind of got through all of the mock-up and everything and had him come down to the shop and size it all up for fit and to pick a color for the gas tank and the fender. The frame was going to originally just be powder-coated black, but this ruby red grapefruit color that he couldn't live without, it was his request that I paint the frame. So painting a frame can mean a number of things. Different colors will talk to you in different fashions. A white will require a different amount of molding than like a black and so on and so forth. So kind of seeing this color in my mind, I knew that like all of the joint seams, the welds needed to be smoothed and Frenched off. So that was a little bit extra on top of the van, but at the end of the day, he was right. It looks tremendously better with the frame painted in the color. Yeah, the build time was about 6 weeks on this bike from start to finish with paint and everything. That's collectively. I mean, it happened in little chunks throughout all of 2024, but we just finally finished it up right around the new year. So
Dang.
fires up and does all the cool stuff, and he's coming down next week to take delivery of it. So we're rocking, yeah.
Wow. So what goes into something like this as far as custom? I mean, obviously you've got to stretch and cut and eliminate this, hardtail it.
Yeah, the original frames with the rear suspension, they just have a much flatter layout here. And then there's a bar there and shocks, and it's kind of big and bulky, and the battery boxes and oil tanks it just kind of crowd the whole architecture of everything. So by narrowing, doing the hardtail, you kind of get that cool line. So when it comes to what's custom about it, really all of it. I mean, the original part of the frame that I used was from about here to about here and just below the engine. So the drivetrain mounting points are in their original spots, but then the neck itself was the original neck. The backbone was extended, some angles were changed. So it's a lot of bending and geometry and math. We have a really fancy frame jig from a friend of mine, Christian Newman in New York, who builds phenomenal equipment, and his frame jig is not messing around. So it gives me the versatility to get as creative as I want, Again, this bike here, I feel like I've built numerous times, and so it was kind of stagnant and mundane, I guess, through most of the parts. And then I got to the paint work, and then I realized that I was starting to get a little bit more excited about it. There was a roll of this odd grapefruit-colored wiring that I've had in all my toolboxes as cloth wiring. I had it probably 20 years. And as I was getting ready to lay out the electrics for the bike, I was like, I wonder, and I grabbed that roll, and it miraculously is the identical color. So I tried to incorporate that little cloth wiring everywhere I could there. And a lot of guys that ride these industrial bikes, I mean, these bikes were originally designed in the 60s by our pioneers for road tripping. I mean, with the long front end and the rake and these handlebars, really you can hang out on this thing all day long, even with the lack of rear suspension. They were doing that for style and comfort, And so you get to that point where these bikes go ridden thousands of miles. There's grease, there's broken parts, there's roadside weld repairs, there's birds and bugs. And I mean, it's a big, nasty looking thing. So to make one that's really nice you kind of have to walk that tightrope, you know. And the original plan of the bike was just very utilitarian, black powder coat, no frills, not a lot of chrome,
Yeah.
weren't going over the top. And then with the choice of the paint color, I realized that chrome had to be a little shinier, had to freshen up a lot more of the aluminum. So they talk to you, you know, as the bike, it'll give you a basic conversation when you're designing it. And then as you begin construction, it'll change its story a little bit. And then as you get farther along, the story will change and the story will change. With the big show bikes that I do, I have them in my brain right down to every acorn nut. And so very little distracts from the original design. On stuff like this, how long is he going to ride it? Does he take care of his stuff? Is he abusive? Does he care? Does he not care? What do you got to do? You know, where's our budget at? So there's a lot of pending factors, and it's nice when they all kind of streamline in and everything meets in the middle. You know?
Right, for sure. A little bit of an interesting choice. You went with a foot clutch, right?
Again, that was his choice. They called these the suicide clutch for a very good reason. It's like a car clutch. If you let the clutch out, you're going.
Right.
There is no front brake. So if you're on a hill and you have to put both of your feet down, because naturally you can't operate a front brake, it's a definite learning style. It's a curve that lots of people can't do. I incorporate on my personal bikes Harley Davidson's original rocker clutch, which is a foot-operated clutch, but it has a cantilever type spring, you can lock your clutch in and put your foot down, and then simply put your foot back on it, rock it, and go without having to touch the shifter.
Right.
A little bit more mechanisms, and again, some people have a learning curve with that because it's kind of backwards from this style. This is exactly like a car, but if you are not paying attention and have neutral, you're gonna realize why they called it that real quick. You know.
I've done the same thing. You come to a light and you go to set it on this side, and you're like, "Uh-oh, I gotta go." Sorry, running the red.
You'll see guys with kind of they'll come to a, intersection, and they'll turn their forks a certain way, and they'll get that certain angle on their bike so they can just sit there and have their foot on that clutch.
Sure.
And it's like, seems like an odd way to park at a stop sign, but every guy does it a little bit different. You know, some guys, are on their neutral right away, and they're just always on neutral. They're ready to go with that. Other guys just leave it in gear the whole time. Again, it's to each their own, and everybody has a different skill level and confidence level when it comes to motorcycling. But riding bikes like this, it's all about some bravery at the end of the day. But that's you also look pretty damn cool doing it.
Yeah. So you traded a van for this?
I did.
Must be a pretty cool van.
It is a pretty cool van. I've wanted one since I was a kid, and he had this thing, and it's not the world's finest thing, but it's got Kraegers and BF Goodriches and side pipes and a furry dash mat and sunroofs, and it's pretty rowdy, you know what I mean? So I've had it for about a year, but I just have felt really bad about driving it just because I hadn't completed his bike yet. So that was another motivational push for me to finish that bike, was so that I can actually
drive the van.
Yeah, and potentially is going to be the push vehicle for our Bonneville race car, the Salt Shadow, that we're redoing.
Oh, awesome. So
I'll build a wooden 2x6 bumper for the front and put an air conditioning unit on it, and then this will be our rolling box that we hang out in, our clubhouse
headquarters.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about the van trade. So I do have a lot of motorcycles, way more than I have of vans, so it seemed like a worthy trade. My wife wasn't so agreeative on it, but it's all right. She'll like the van when she drives.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for showing us.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thanks for coming.